On Business Incorporated today, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development backs first municipal bond in Morocco. And Zimbabwe's annual inflation slows down in October. And South African brand firms ahead of the midterm budget. Hello and welcome to the program. Let's begin with market numbers, starting with Africa. Sentiments are positive at intraday. The NGX rose by 0.22%, while South Africa advanced 0.64%. Meanwhile, Egypt's EGX 30 was in the green territory, up by 0.68%, while Kenya closed Monday's session negative, down by 0.33%. In the Middle East, we see that the Abu Dhabi index was also up by 0.21%, while Dubai's index was down more than 1%. It shed 1.34% at intraday. The Abu Dhabi index was up 0. Saudi Arabia's index was down 1.67%. Qatari index was also down 1.64%. Now to Europe, where German sports apparel giant Adidas has ended its partnership with the artist formerly known as Kanye West following the rapper's recent anti-Semitic remarks. Stephen Beersley with Deutsche Welle joins us from Berlin for the view there. Stephen, what's the reaction where you are?
Yeah, the story is getting a lot of interest here as well. Adidas is one of the largest and most successful German multinationals operating in the world right now. It's not the only brand to have dropped Ye over these comments, but it is one of the larger ones. And of course, there's special resonance because it is German. Now, we know that on Tuesday, the Central Council of Jews in Germany released a statement urging Adidas to make just this move. The company coming out a few hours later saying that it was dropping that partnership. It said following a thorough review within the company.
Now, to what extent, Stephen, were West's comments a special concern for a German business like Adidas?
Yeah, there is a special sensitivity given around such comments, I should say, here in Germany, given the country's past, given the Holocaust, and then, of course, given that a number of major companies benefited from that period of time. They also benefited from forced labor from the war, for example. So many multinationals having to come to terms with that, having to be very transparent, and then having to develop plans for how they kind of continue to work on those issues in the future and how they represent themselves in light of their past. Now, Adidas was founded in the post-war time, and post-war Germany has made fighting anti-Semitism something of a state principle. We've noticed in recent years across Europe, across Germany, that there have, however, been more instances of anti-Semitism, more attacks, insults, things like that on the rise, public occurrences, I should say, of these kinds of things on the rise. And that's been concerning for the German mainstream, for German politics here, and for many who are watching stories like this unfold. So that's obviously in the background here as we see what happens with Adidas.
So what are we seeing from European markets today? How are they reacting to this?
Yeah, European markets mostly starting down, but trying to pare back some of those losses this morning. We've seen FTSE, not just the FTSE 100 in London, but also markets in Paris and Frankfurt, both a little bit lower, mostly led by technology stocks, and that following Wall Street also tumbling a little bit on news from the Dutch semiconductor maker ASM that it had lower growth prospects for the rest of the year based on what it was seeing in the economy, and that sort of dampened the mood here across Europe as well. So we can otherwise say that the FTSE 100 is down a little bit, trying to pare back some of those losses, but the pound is stable. Another good sign as the new government comes into office in London and tries to bring stability, tries to work out some of those budget issues that have thrown markets there in the UK into turmoil in recent years, or in recent months, I should say, recent days, I should say. Excuse me.
Thanks, Stephen. We'll be keeping track of what the ECB does as they, prepare for a jumbo spike or hike in the interest rate today. Thanks, Stephen, for your update. Now to the UK, where all eyes are on the new Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and planned October 31 fiscal statement, which has now been delayed. Juliana is in London with the juice on that and more. Juliana, it's good to have you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Will. How are you?
I'm well. Downing Street has confirmed that the planned October 31 budget will be delayed to November the 17th. What difference or impact does this make, if any? Why are they delaying this, and what impact will it make?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Gosh, a term, I'm sorry. I said to Winnie, I'm going to be saying that term pretty frequently because, we are in turbulent times in the UK at the moment. Just before 11 o'clock this morning, Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, did confirm rumours that indeed that fiscal plan, which was supposed to be delivered on Monday, October the 31st, Halloween, not a great day to deliver an economic statement anyway, will be delayed for a couple of weeks to the 17th of November. And it's actually been upgraded and transformed into an autumn statement, which is much bigger than a fiscal plan, and it's also going to have details from the Office for Budget Responsibility. And this is obviously all because when Liz Truss announced her economic policy, the market plummeted, and we did start to see that there was a £40 billion hole in the coffers. And to try and win back that international financial credibility which Britain has enjoyed over the past few years, they are going to have to spell out exactly how they plan to bring down government debt, which is almost at 100% of GDP. Now, we know that the former Chancellor, current Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, did pretty well when he was in number 11. There were some suggestions that perhaps because he does have all of this banking experience, that it was him that decided to pull the plug on Monday's announcement. But indeed, it was Jeremy Hunt, the Chancellor, that suggested to the new Prime Minister that, we should calm down, take a breath, look at all of the macroeconomic stumbling blocks, shall we say, and wait and then give the statement. The only issue with that, Will, is that, of course, the Bank of England are going to be meeting next week, Thursday, to decide on interest rates. High interest rates, really impacting about 900,000 mortgage borrowers. Their mortgages are going up every month. So I think they were really looking for that respite, but they'll just have to wait a couple more weeks for that.
As you say, we'll just wait and see how that pans out and hope it's something like more of a favorable outcome for UK citizens and tourists alike. Now, we see also that gas prices have fallen in recent months, and now they're now at the 70% below their August peak. Have consumers and, small businesses begun to feel this drop in price? And if not, when will they begin to feel it?
Not sure when, and no is the answer to that question bluntly. Consumers in Britain are not feeling that fall yet. In fact, there have been critics of Ofgem, the energy regulator here, in the past anyway, because some say, that when they are seeing a fall in wholesale gas prices, it's just not getting to consumers fast enough. But this is good news. It is good news. But of course, we have to hold our horses, because we know that gas prices have been so sporadic over the past few months. Of course, it's been made worse since Putin started that illegal invasion of Ukraine, and it's made even worse for those on the continent because Moscow have basically turned off all the pipelines. But I think one of the reasons why we are seeing a fall in gas prices is because it has actually been warmer than it typically would be at this time of the year. In fact, even in the UK, I'm sure our viewers will testify to the fact that it is quite warm today, still cold but pretty warm, which means that consumers are not putting on the gas and heating up their homes as much as they would have. And because of the emergency gas crisis, the US and Europe have made sure that storage facilities are pretty full. So because storage facilities are pretty full and people are not using gas as they would typically at this time of the year, gas prices are falling. So that's good news. Not so much for the UK because, of course, we already have a price cap. So it does take months and months for this to reach consumers. But in the EU, Brussels, we know that, last week they had a pretty intense 2-day meeting because they are trying to form some sort of energy price cap. We've got, the likes of France and Poland desperate for it. Netherlands, Germany, not so much. But, we got to take the good news when it comes in dark days, dark times such as this. So, yeah, this is great news, not reaching consumers just yet, though.
We'll hope that trickles down very soon, Juliana. So, but how are the markets doing at intraday?
Market's not great, pretty much in the doldrums in the UK. We still haven't got those FTSE UK blue chip index numbers up just yet. There's been a spate of company news, banking, trading updates that seems to have dragged down the all-share index, which is down 0.18% at intraday. FTSE 100, that's down too by 0.41%. FTSE 250, though, that's currently trading up by 0.70%. In the currencies market, though, we are seeing a relief rally in the British pound. At one point this morning, it was up again $1.16, which is huge, and a big win for Rishi Sunak and the Treasury there. It's currently trading up against the US dollar by 0.92%, so £1 will get you about $1.15 at the moment. The British pound is also trading up against the euro by 0.33% and up too against the Japanese yen by 0.37%, Will.
Thanks so much, Juliana. I see investors are having positive sentiments regarding the pound as Rishi Sunak is in power. Thank you so much for the update, Juliana.
Thank you.
Now, speaking of markets, shares in the Asia Pacific rose on Wednesday as sentiment overnight improved over the Fed potentially turning less aggressive. The Hong Kong Hang Seng Index rose 0.84% after 3 consecutive sessions. The Hang Seng Tech Index gained 2%, and in mainland China, the Shanghai Composite added 0.78%, and the Shenzhen Component gained 1.55%. Now, the China Securities Regulatory Commission on Tuesday said it intends to expedite the development of a regulated, transparent, open, lively, and resilient market. Australia's annual consumer price index reached the highest since December 1990. The S&P 200, the S&P ASX 200 rose 0.18%. The Nikkei 225 in Japan rose 0.67%, while South Korea's Kospi gained 0.65%. Now to the U.S., where stock futures fell early on Wednesday. Today, after disappointing third-quarter results from Alphabet, marked a foreboding start to big tech earnings this week. Now, Dow Jones Industrial Average futures fell by 0.02%. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100 futures declined 0.61% and 1.53% respectively. Shares of Google parent Alphabet dropped more than 6% in extended trading. So now let's take a quick listen at yesterday's trading activity with our correspondent, Maria Bird.
The U.S. stock market rose on Tuesday, continuing a market rally, which has propelled the Dow Jones Industrial Average into a 6-week high. The Dow Jones closed at 1.07% up. The S&P 500 was 1.62% up, and the heavy tech NASDAQ was up by 2.25%. Many investors are hopeful that the earnings reports are a good sign and that inflation is on the decline in the U.S. This is also lending to the fact that the Federal Reserve may not put stricter monetary policies in place. So many investors are looking to how they can continue to grow the marketplace, and it will sustain through the fourth quarter.
Thanks, Maria. Oil prices fell in early trade on Wednesday as the dollar firmed and as industry data showed U.S. crude oil stockpiles rose more than expected, reinforced fears of a global recession that would cut demand. Brent crude futures for December dropped $1.17 after climbing 26 cents in the previous session. U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures for December delivery was down 1% to $84.44 a barrel, reversing previous previous session's gains. Now, meanwhile, according to the American Petroleum Institute, the U.S. crude inventories rose by about 4.5 million barrels in the week ended October the 21st, higher than analyst expectations. Now, onto the metal zone. Gold prices were flat on Wednesday on a firmer dollar, although the bullion was anchored in a narrow range, with investors awaiting further guidance on U.S. Federal Reserve's policy tightening. Spot gold was flat at $1,653.06 per ounce, while U.S. gold futures were down 0.2%. The dollar index was up 0.1%, reducing the gold's appeal for overseas buyers. The greenback was, however, not far from the pre-week low touched on Tuesday, and the Fed is widely expected to deliver a fourth straight supersized interest rate hike when they meet in November. The spot silver fell 0.1%. Platinum dipped 0.1% as well, and palladium rose 0.9% to close. Next, crypto adoption in Africa and the fight against inflation. This is Business Incorporated. Stay with us. Welcome back. Africa is quickly emerging as the hub of global crypto adoption as the technology goes down from developed economies towards emerging markets. Now, according to the 2022 Global Crypto Adoption Index by Chainalysis, 3 African nations are among the top 20 countries using cryptocurrencies and associated services. That's Nigeria, Morocco, and Kenya. Crypto adoption had a significant positive impact in emerging markets where financial inclusion levels were relatively low. Now, Chi Nadi, co-founder and chief executive officer at Mara, joins me now with more insights. Good afternoon, Chi. It's good to have you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Now, according to the report, the report I just mentioned or made allusion to, the 2022 Global Crypto Adoption Index shows that Nigeria, Kenya, and Morocco are among the top 20 countries using cryptocurrencies. What do you think is the attraction here?
Well, I think it's a very exciting time for the adoption of cryptocurrencies. What you ask what the attraction here, what we're seeing in that data is that it's not only African countries, but really emerging market and frontier countries that have very young populations, because crypto is the investment class for the future. So you're finding that in countries with very young population, people are being drawn to digital assets as a way of securing their economic future, and also as a mechanism or platform for building solutions to solve problems in their countries. And that's why we find adoption happening in usually countries that have a young population and are usually emerging in frontier countries, like for us here in Nigeria.
So how do you think African users can minimize the risk? Because now that we're having a widespread usage of this, how can you think the risk can be minimized, especially when using digital finance wallets?
Yeah. I mean, this is a new paradigm, a new playing field, and it's important to work with trusted wallets. One of the things that we've prioritized at Mara from the beginning is customer service. 24 hours, there will be someone there to receive your email, to help you through to help you through your ticket or through the issue that you're dealing with that day on the platform. And historically, crypto has had a problem with customer service, and we set out to make sure that problem is solved. Because if we're going to make sure that all of us are owning a little bit of Bitcoin, a little bit of Ethereum, and that Africans, as we don't get left behind as this revolution happens, we've got to make the adoption of it and purchasing of those assets as easy and simple and as trustworthy as possible. And that's something we prioritize at Mara.
Yeah, so you talked about how huge crypto is right now, especially in Africa. The adoption is we can't even, it's mind-blowing. What role do you think these currencies, the digital currencies, will play or are playing to fight inflation, which is skyrocketing right now in Africa and across the world as it is?
Yeah, it's not a coincidence that is countries that have young populations, that have inflation issues and such, that crypto adoption is the highest. One of the types of crypto digital assets are stablecoins, where the digital asset is 1-to-1 backed with the US dollar. And so people are finding that as a way to protect their savings, to go from local currency into this digital currency. So one is called Tether, another one is called USDT. These are assets that by holding them, you're holding US dollars, which allows you to alleviate the inflation that we're receiving in our local currencies. And so in a way, it's savings protection for people. So you take your Naira and you put it into these stable coins as a way of preserving your wealth.
No, but we've seen this relationship where when the dollar strengthens, cryptocurrencies fall. So how does it serve as a hedge right now against inflation if the crypto coin is dropping? Can you expatiate on that?
Yeah, so just to parse between some of the definitions that we're working with here, not what I just described before is a stable coin that is also cryptocurrency. It's not inflationary or deflationary. It's stable because it's backed 1-to-1 with regular fiat cash. Okay. And so at times like this, what people are doing is those are the cryptocurrencies that they're attracted to, the ones that aren't volatile, the ones that preserve wealth. And so most of folks are going into those assets. It's also, and to speak about the volatility you're talking about, I've been in crypto since 2010, right? So I've seen up and down, and this is what happens when we're bringing a new asset class into society as society starts to develop and accept it. And so I would say that right now is a great time to get into stable cryptos that to preserve your wealth, like a USDC or a Tether, a stable coin. But it's also a great time to actually start accumulating crypto as well for the long run. As you can imagine, I've seen it go from $1 to $100, back to $1 to 1,000, and it's about the important thing is that Africans, we can't get left behind. There's a very famous book called Homo Deus that I read in 2016 that said that whenever there's a new technology, it's always the countries that are the poorest that are left behind. And I remember reading that book and realizing that there was no way that Africa was going to get left behind when it came to blockchain technology. And those are the driving reasons why we started Mara. So I would say to people that this is a chance of a lifetime, this revolution that's taking place, and Africa is the future. We're the future, so we should be the ones driving this conversation.
Thanks so much, Che Nnadi. Hoping that cryptocurrency continues to disrupt the financial space and, bring more financial inclusion to young Africans who've been excluded for a long time. Thank you so much, Che Nnadi, for joining us. He's the CEO at Mara and co-founder at Mara as well. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us.
Thank you.
Now, to other stories where the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, as the EBRD, is supporting Agadir, that's the capital city of Morocco's Soumassa region, in its plans to diversify funding sources by tapping the debt capital markets with an investment of 400 million Moroccan dirhams in a local currency bond of 1 billion Moroccan dirham issued by the city of Agadir. The bank's investment will help Agadir free up additional resources to implement its ongoing urban development program focusing on green and inclusive infrastructure projects. This subscription will serve as a trigger investment under the EBRD Green Cities program, formally initiating Agadir's participation in the program and making the city the first in Morocco to join the scheme. Under EBRD's Green Cities, Agadir will commit to developing a Green City Action Plan, which will identify its key environmental challenges and the measures required to address them. Now to Zimbabwe, where the year-on-year inflation has fallen to 268.8% in October from 280.4% in September, and that's according to the Zimbabwe National Statistics Agency, Zimstat. The latest figures from Zimstat also show that the monthly inflation for October is 3.2%, down from the September rate of 3.5%. The major groups with high inflation in October 2022 include communication, housing, water, electricity and gas, as well as food and non-alcoholic beverages. Now, South Africa's rand strengthened in early trading on Wednesday ahead of a budget speech in which the finance minister is expected to update economic forecasts and make emergency changes to spending. The rand strengthened at 18.16% against the dollar, 0.1% firmer than its previous close. Analysts say the focus will be squarely on the local medium-term budget policy statement and the guidance that will come from the finance minister to support the country's economy. And that's it on Business Incorporated. Thanks for watching. I'm Will Ibang. Bye for now.